What's up, everybody? Welcome to Johnny I Pro Show. I have two special guests here, Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, man.
Of course, welcome to Canada.
Yeah, I love
my hands
Canada.
are cold. So the cold just comes along. Now, the first thing, as I mentioned, cold, that comes to your mind when you think of Canada. Let's start off with you.
Honestly, I have the warmest, even though it is cold here, the warmest memories of Canada. I have lovely memories coming out to Canada. And to be honest, I just think of, this is kind of a lame answer, but like all of my friends here that I've met over the years, it feels like, I don't know, I love coming to North America and I prefer coming to Canada than America. So when I think of Canada, I just think of, to be honest, people like Jody Threat and all my lovely other friends out here and all the great wrestling scene.
Oh, that's a really lovely answer, because my answer is going to be, what do I think about when I think of Canada? And I think of John Candy. Because I absolutely love John Candy.
And actually, Tim Hortons as well. Tim Hortons, like the greatest coffee shop.
I just think, like, for me, it was like, I always just thought, like, a lot of the people I saw on TV were Americans, and I think John Candy was one of the first people I was like, oh, so he's not American, he's Canadian? So I just think about John Candy, and I absolutely love John Candy and all his films and stuff like that. So John Candy.
Now, what got you into wrestling?
So I got into wrestling when I was 8 years old. My older cousin was a big fan. He must have been like 12. So, you know, if you're a 12-year-old boy around the Attitude Era, you're going to like pro wrestling, right? So I remember going around his house and he showed me the VHSs and stuff like that. And then by the time I was 12, so only 4 years later, I found a wrestling school. So I was pretty much, you know, I was wrestling pretty fast after my fandom started. But the guys who got me into wrestling, the Hardy Boys, you know, to be honest, I like wrestling. As a kid, my favorite wrestler was Road Dogg.
Road Dogg?
Like all those Attitude Era guys, you know, Mick Foley coming off the cell, Attitude Era, high flying, death defying stuff is what got me into wrestling.
For me, I was in primary school, and there was just some lads playing wrestling on the field one day when it was like nice and sunny. I was like, what is this? So I kind of like started like doing it. So it's wrestling, and I was like, they were like, oh, there's a wrestling show that will be on Channel 4 tonight. So I got my mum to record it, and I watched like the Rumble and stuff like that. And I remember just watching it and then seeing Too Cool do the dance and being like, oh, I'm in. I'm totally in. Like, all this fighting, all this wrestling, Stone Cold being the badass, but like Too Cool doing the dance, I was like, oh, it's like theatre and action. This is great.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into it.
I love it. Now, who are your favorites growing up?
So yeah, honestly, Road Dogg, big Road Dogg.
Oh,
guy.
I didn't know.
Nice.
I got that after 2 seconds.
And then Hardy Boys and Shawn Michaels. You know, I think I was a big, you know, by the time Rey Mysterio came in, Rey Mysterio as well, I was a big high flying guy, and more so like not just high flying, but like death defying. So I loved Mick Foley as a kid. I really went for like a Mick Foley stage, and I just loved like all the hardcore stuff. I loved the Hell in the Cell matches and the TLC matches and all that type of stuff. So I'm gonna say Hardy Boys were pretty, you know, maybe the biggest influence on me as a kid, and they still are now. To be honest, they're the coolest guys ever. So
Yeah.
I think for me it was like I said, watching those shows, you know, like Too Cool and stuff like that. But for me, it was probably like Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was like the height of his fame in like 1999, 2000. So I think it was just seeing this. He was just a superstar, wasn't he? It's him and then The Rock doing cool stuff. So for me, it was that. And then as I started getting more into wrestling and what I enjoyed, I'd say now like Eddie Guerrero's my favorite wrestler of all time. So like I remember watching him and Lesnar, No Way Out 2004, which we put on the other day, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it's my favorite match of all time. It's when he's in the crowd and he's with his family and he's celebrating, and I was going like, oh, that was when I was like, oh, I have to do this somehow, whatever level it's going to be, I need to do this. So I'd say it's like early doors, Stone Cold, The Rock, and then when I started kind of really starting to enjoy it, it was like people like Shawn Michaels, Jericho, and Eddie Guerrero.
Wow, amazing. Now, Mark, as well, now you were also trained by Zack Sabre Jr. Let's talk about that. Like, what advice did it give you until this day you carry along?
So yeah, it's wild because when I was 14 years old, no, 15 years. Let's say 14 years old, 2006, when I started training up at NWA Hammerlock in Kent. So for context, that's like 5 hours away from Cardiff, where I'm from, and I'd never met Zack Sabre Jr. before, and he was 17. So he was coaching me when he was 17 and I was 14. And I remember back then being like, this guy's amazing. He was like the NWA UK Junior Heavyweight Champion at the time, and I was like, oh, one day I'll win that belt. Never did, which is a shame.
Cool sweeping fringe.
Yeah, cool fringe. And I was like, this guy's awesome. Had him on MySpace, you know. Like, one day I'll be in his top 8 friends, you know. I never was as well. If you're watching this, Zach, just so you know, that broke my heart. No, it was really, really great. I'll be honest, Zach was one of the first guy who was like, I think as soon as I walked into the school, you could see this guy is like 14 years old, little kid, high flyer. Let's get him to do Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko type stuff. So I remember with him, he just throw me around. You know, he'd get me up on the top rope and do the Dean Malenko gutbuster thing, you know, and like he'd be doing all this cool. Like, he'd teach me like hurricanranas and head scissors and all that type of stuff, and essentially trying to imitate like the really technical side of wrestling, all like the Japanese like Dragon Gate type stuff or Noah stuff with me. And I didn't even know what I was doing at that time. You know what I mean? I look back now and I'm like, that's so sick, especially where his career has gone, because he was, I guess, ahead of his time in terms of the UK scene. Like, he was an incredible technical wrestler before anyone was like doing it in that style. Obviously, we have a rich history in the UK of technical wrestling. He was the first guy in like our generation to do something different and stand out, and you know, bring in the kind of Japanese influence into it as well. So yeah, he's always been, even though he only trained me at these camps, so let's say like 4 or 5 occasions over 2 years for like weeks at a time, he's always been like a mentor to me, and then on top of that, kind of just to all of our little group, right? To you, Wild Boar, Pete Dunne. He's always kind of been like a mentor for all of us, and still to this day, someone who I, you know, always love to hear advice from and stuff, because he's the man. He's an absolute expert, genius.
Could have said better. Now, both you guys were actually trained by Mike Bird as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Start off with you, Flash.
So, like, Bird was in that kind of the contemporaries with Sabre. Like, Sabre always says it's like a shame, isn't it, that Bird didn't do more and stuff like that, and he has said that. And they used to have these great little matches. But I think like he almost like crosses the bridge between like the old school mentality in Wales, where there was a lot of people who were like part-time wrestlers and they weren't trying to make a full-time living out. They were in social clubs and they were getting decent people in, but they weren't training like athletes and they weren't training like wrestlers. And he was the one that kind of bridged that gap, isn't it, where he started like, okay, we're gonna have a proper, him and Ed Ferris really, him and Ed Ferris, like, oh, we're gonna have a proper school. And Bird was the first person then to make sure that the school had a ring and it had designated days, and it was like, and then, okay, we're gonna have schools, we're gonna have shows that are attached to that school. So like, he kind of said it was a bit like, not wishy-washy, but it was like a bit more of the Wild West when we first came in, and he was very kind of like, he kind of started moving it towards more of a established professional.
And I think he was gonna like him and Ed Ferris with the bridge towards like the scene that ultimately our generation got to kind of start as well. Do you know what I mean? So like, it was very much, there wasn't much of a scene at all when we first started in Wales, and those guys made it at least something and gave us like really good training, to be honest, for its time as well, you know. And then luckily that set off like me and you and the Wild Boar and guys who weren't Welsh but travelled down a lot, like Pete Dunne and stuff, and obviously Eddie Dennis too. It kind of meant that we were in a good enough place after that, good enough wrestlers to be like, we can make this what we want it to be now, you know, and make it a bit more, I don't know, professional all round.
He kind of gave a little bit of a blueprint, didn't he?
Yeah. Let's talk about both of you guys being from Wales and stuff, like the scene in Wales with wrestling growing up.
Yeah, well, Mark was saying, like, when we first started, there wasn't really a scene. It was kind of you were like Celtic wrestling, and they were doing some social clubs, and they would do like Canton Hall every now and again. They wouldn't run semi-regularly, but it was kind of scattered throughout, and they'd maybe get like 80 to 100 people in
at most.
And then maybe once a year they'd get maybe like a show with 200 in. And it wasn't really, it was very like family orientated, or as you said, it was like a lot of hardcore wrestling, so people were coming to see people go through tables, and with not a lot of like psychology and not a lot of thought, and no branding would be the word I'd say.
Yeah.
So like, we kind of created, like yourself and Pete Dunne created like Attack Pro Wrestling, and we were in that fundamental group that helped do that, and that's what kind of started growing that scene within Wales. Like, it's mad to me that there's a bingo hall in South Wales, that there were people traveling from America and Canada and Mexico and Japan and all these places to come to this bingo hall and either be a part of the shows or watch the shows. And I think there's like a few people that I was speaking to, some of the young lads the other day, and they were saying to me, like, as much as Progress is the one that everyone looked at in the States, like that came around about 2 years after we started with Attack. So like, we almost kind of like had this DIY mentality in this hall, doing Shakara, PWG, Ring of Honor style wrestling in these halls. And then 2 years later, Progress kind of saw that undercurrent that was bubbling, and they went, oh, we can do this in the capital city.
And promote it better.
Because
they were adults.
Yeah,
and we were just kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when it comes to promotion, seconds and John Briley and stuff like that, they made it cool. They made it like, to us it was like it was underground, and it was dirty, and it was like DIY. and they made it cool.
And ultimately, like then the talent was there, right? Because there was like our little subculture in Wales with tag pro wrestling, but then there's a subculture in like Wolverhampton and elsewhere. And they had the talent they could kind of take from there and put it on a better scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly right. I think that like Flash says, there wasn't really any sort of real scene, or not one that was incredible anyway when we first started, which meant it gave us kind of a bit of a kick up the arse to be like, okay, we can now make a scene that we're proud of with the influence of all those companies you talked about.
Yeah.
And again, punk rock is the word for it, I think. It was kids doing it with some sort of passion and some sort of vision, and I look back now and think how wonderful it is that it's become what it is.
Yeah, because the scene's absolutely bustling now, isn't it?
And you talk about Cathays Community Centre, like there's a famous story of Drew Onyx from Canada. He was the NWA Commonwealth champion. He used to come over and wrestle in Cathays Community Centre, and he wrestled Finn Balor there, and like Becky Lynch wrestled there. And there's loads of stories.
Wade
of, like,
Barrett debuted there.
Wade Barrett, yeah, we started training there as well. So like it's quite a lot of history now in this little bingo hall in Cathays in Cardiff, even though it's still just a little rough and ready venue that we use. Which so I love
history
it.
there. Rich history.
Yes,
You
yeah.
mentioned, wow. Now, how did this come about? Like forming the tag team. Start off with you.
Oh, I feel like it's like a story of two parts, because I feel like when we met each other, and we really, I think really early doors looked, especially when we were in Wales, that there wasn't really like a tag team scene. And if you were a smaller guy in Wales, you would very much be like, oh, you'd be putting matches, but you were just going to get beat, and it would literally like, you didn't really do a lot. So I think that we looked at it and went, oh, there's a gap here to be Kendrick in London. That's literally, it was kind of that, wasn't it? It was Kendrick in London. So like we had a few matches down in Wales under the name Smash Hits. That's what we called ourselves. We were Smash Hits. So we had those, and then we'd dabble every now and again. Then we'd put against each other in Coventry against like 100 Brothers and stuff like that. And then we'd end up teaming once or twice in like a Progress. So there was always, I think, like if they needed to, like, we need to put a makeshift tag team together, and what do we need? They would always look at us too and be like, oh, they're similar. And then we'd end up getting and the Welsh, they were friends, and they wrestle the same. We'll put together. But it wasn't until we kind of got to WWE that they were like, they must have had the exact same thought, and they were like, okay, we can do this. And I think for me and Mark, by the time we got to WWE, we had already kind of carved out our careers as singles wrestlers. So to get to WWE and then them going like, oh, we're going to put you as a tag team, I think both of us were a bit time like, I don't really want to be a tag team. I want to be a superstar on my own.
Well, we both like worked pretty hard individually on our singles brands, you know what I mean? And like,
being very different too.
I mean, you always say the story, and I always think of it as a massive compliment. But like, you struggled when you first came on the scene in Wales, kind of because I was around like let's say a year earlier, right?
But also you are like, and I'm not smoking smoke. I honestly believe like you are one of the best high flyers to ever come out of Wales. There's some of the newer lads now coming out who can do extraordinary things. But I think smooth as silk and the way you put stuff, you're so good as a high flyer that I was always just going to be the second best high flyer from Wales, and I couldn't be that. I had to be the best version of myself. So being that high flyer was not going to be that answer.
So, and that's why I guess so you worked so hard on your character stuff and that, and that's why then when we got to WWE, we were like, well, we got two different things, like, because we've worked hard on differentiating ourselves. I know we occasionally tag, like, we're not coming in as a tag team.
Yeah.
And then at first when WWE did team us together, like, we'd always said our chemistry wasn't very good. Like, even though we'd done stuff on the indies, we definitely felt like we were like, oh, this isn't clicking as fast as it should. And I'm really grateful then that once we actually did get a good few reps in, and it was kind of then around 2019, wasn't it? After maybe a year of tagging, where we were like, okay, we're a team now. And now I'm like, okay, we got great guys, I'd love tagging with you.
Yeah, I always say to people, I feel like when we first started doing it, it would be like, we'd be trying to be backstage, or we'd be in training trying to put stuff together, and we'd have very conflicting ideas of what we thought it should be of the team, like how it looked, all this other stuff. But then there'd be moments in the ring where it would just be magic, and we were like, oh, this does work. This does work. And then we had the one was the match of Blackpool against Imperium, right?
Yeah,
that's the one.
Fabian and Marcel.
Marcel, where like literally we did the pre-show for Takeover Blackpool, and I remember coming back, the place went mental. We came back, and the Grizzly and Veterans and Mustache Mountain looked at us because they were on next after the first match. They
on the actual
on
pay-per-view as well.
They were like, thanks boys, appreciate that.
We were like, sorry,
we just absolutely killed it.
Different episode, we were main event. A smaller episode.
So that's when we kind of like, oh, there is something here. And I always say to people, over the course of the years, it's been kind of like figuring out like what you're really good at when it comes to. Because I think we're both quite well-rounded, but there'll be obviously areas that Mark's really good at, and there'll be areas that, like, I'm good at. And I think he's like, okay, we'll play the Mark strength here, we'll play the my strength here.
Exactly. Now let's go on to a little music side of things. Now, Mark, as well, stuff. You you were the vocalist and you play also bass on the band Junior.
Yes.
Let's talk about how that all come about.
Well, it's great timing because we have an album coming out next year, which was meant to be out this year, actually. So, to go into this...
Where can we get that?
Plug it in.
I don't even know yet. Yeah, I'm not sure yet. No, so about 10 years ago, we started the band. So I just graduated from university. I was obviously, full-blown into pro wrestling. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I've been playing music. I started playing guitar at 12, I started wrestling at 13. So like music's been there the whole time in my life, very passionate musician, and I love doing it. But I've never really given it my all because I always had wrestling. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to regret this. Like even if I just start a band and we play like 1 or 2 shows, at least I won't regret it. So my good friend Matt, we just started writing a little EP in my old bedroom. And from there then, that's been now, 10 years ago, 10 years of touring. We found a fantastic drummer shortly after we started writing music called Sai, who's one of my great friends. And like, it's really nice. The fact that I've been able to juggle it with pro wrestling is amazing. And there's been so many times where they've clashed. Like I remember we had a show booked for a little show down the road in Bristol, which is like, 30 minutes, an hour away from where I live. And that night at 11 p.m. I had the call from Talent Relations from WWE, like, you guys need to be on Raw tomorrow. And I was just like, okay. I was trying to call the band, they were all asleep. I was like, you guys got to do acoustic. Me and Flash are on Raw now. And like, there's been loads of times like that where like a touring opportunity has shown up, and then, you need to fly out to LA to be in 205 Live, and I'm like, so it has been hard juggling it, but I'm really glad I've been able to. And then in recent years, as I said, we've toured a ton around the UK. We did a tour of Canada a few years ago as well. We've done like a big festival or two in the UK. And in recent years, like I've had a kid, I've got married. Sai, our drummer, thank you so much. Same thing, married with a kid. Other singer and guitarist, Matt, he recently got married. We're all getting older. The band doesn't pay the bills, Matt actually is a professional songwriter himself. He's written for like huge artists. So the band has taken like a bit of a side for us, it's on the bench at the moment. So we've been working for like a year and a half on this album very, very slowly, and it was meant to be out this year and it will now be out next year, but we're kind of just going at our own pace. So I love being in the band. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities and the fun stuff I get to do in Junior, but it's just like a passion project on the side, and I think I'm happy with that. It's nice to not have the pressure of both. Wrestling is a weird career as it is, but also being in a band is kind of a weird career. So having both of those, it would be stressful if I relied on it financially. I think, it's already a bit stressful with wrestling to have to rely on that. So it's nice to have as something on the side that we can do when we have time.
Exactly. Looking forward to the album as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going to be sick. I'm just going to say it's sounding good.
Now, onto the music side of things. Your inspiration, obviously, the fit right there.
Look at that.
Of course, love it. Now, your inspiration, as well as your character and stuff, it seems what it looks like, obviously, inspired by Oasis.
Yeah, so like it's very like mod culture and stuff like that, and they always say that like if it wasn't for the likes of like the Beatles and the Jam and stuff like that, there would be no Oasis. So it is very heavily embedded in that. And again, I think that comes from what we spoke about, trying to be different. For me, it was like at the time, that's the sort of music I like getting into and stuff like that. And I love Oasis and I love Britpop. And then there was a show that was on in the UK, I don't know if it was ever big over here, called This Is England. So it's kind of about those little fringes of the 70s and 80s and the mod culture. And I thought at the time it was really big, and I thought, I really like this already, I'm going to lean into this. And it started off with me just being kind of very typical mod. And then I think as I've kind of like got bigger, it's been more about how do I make this so understandable for everybody. So it was a part of like looking at the biggest bands and going like, okay, the Beatles are obviously one of the biggest bands, if not the biggest band of all time. And then you go, okay, what's the second biggest British band of all time? And now after this recent reunion, I think the argument would be Oasis. But it's going out to a European country and them going like, oh, you're like a little Beatle, or coming out and going, oh, you're like Liam Gallagher and stuff like that. And I'd be lying if I said like when I walk out, I'm not just channeling Liam Gallagher when I come out and stuff like that. So it is like the hair flick and the way he walks on and stuff like that, and the big parka. So it is very much channeling that. And as we said, I was very fortunate to get tickets to the reunion.
Oh, wow, look at this.
Yeah, look, I'm sure put it. But
we were at a show in Germany.
Oh, well, this is what we're gonna say. But this is where music and wrestling classes yet again.
Yeah, talk about me having to juggle music and wrestling. I'm there like, yo, we should get ready for the match. We should sell merch. And he's like, I'm in 150th in line for tickets. And I'm just like,
150,000
And
for
like, you're like, yeah, we're at work. And then you were heartbroken when you couldn't get tickets at first.
I couldn't get tickets, right? I couldn't get tickets, and he was just like trying to figure this match out. I was just sat there like
I don't care.
I was like, it's pointless. It's pointless. And he was going, come on, man, you can push left. I was like, life is meaningless, isn't it? So I was completely and utterly. So, and the thing is, my wife was at home trying to get me tickets. She was online for like 6 hours and she just didn't get any. But then you had the Greedy Souls on recently, and I hate him. He's my best. He is my best friend. He's the best man on wedding, Brendan White. But I hate him. So one of my friends got tickets, and he got 4 tickets, and my mate Adam Ridley, who I also hate, so if he's watching this, he got tickets, and out of everyone, I am definitely the biggest Oasis fan out of all of them, right? And he got tickets, and he went, right, I need somewhere to stay. So he gave 1 ticket to my mate Lewis. He has a best mate called Dan, so he gave the ticket to that one. And in he had 1 more ticket left, which should go to me. So he rings Brendan because he feels he owes Brendan some favours.
What?
And he goes to Brendan, I've got an Oasis ticket. And Brendan's response is, he goes, do you want it? And Brendan goes, does Gav have a ticket? And he goes, no. I'm flat on Gav, right? He goes, does he have a ticket? And Ridley went, no, he doesn't. And Brendan went, I will take it.
No.
The lifelong feud of you and Brendan White. It's hard to believe you're best friends.
Now I guess why they.
So I got off the plane. I literally got off the plane 2 days ago, and he's a big Stranger Things fan. I made sure I watched every episode on the plane, walked into the house, and just told him spoilers straight away.
No way. And when he was here, he's like, fans call him greedy assholes.
Yeah,
So,
that's him.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't believe that. And now, are you happy with this? Obviously.
Oh, it was like if my wife is watching this, my wedding was the best day of my life. If she's not watching this, Oasis was the best day of my life.
Hello, did you get tickets resale or?
Yeah, we did, but we managed to. I think it was just before everything went mental. When the tour started, the prices then went wild.
Yeah.
But it was about 3 weeks before we got tickets, and I managed to get them for £55 cheaper than Brendan White got them. Just putting that out there.
real winner
Yeah,
here.
he was the real winner. He was the real winner there, so I ended up getting them. He might have saw them before me, but I got to see him in Manchester in their hometown, so it was unreal. Yeah, we got upgraded to first front row as well. So.
Oh wow, little add-on there. Yeah. Love it. Now let's talk about your accolades and all the stuff. Like the wrestling fans love to hear this. Now NXT UK, you guys became the tag team champions and happened to be in Cardiff. Like, come on, it doesn't get more homecoming than that.
I don't think that, we said at the time, right, it'll be hard for anything to top this because there was so much to it as well, right? Like, the venue which it was in was the Motorpoint Arena. I used to go to watch the WWE there when I was like 12, 13 years old. In uni, I lived in an apartment that you could see the venue from the window. It was across the road. Like, I've seen so many gigs there, when I was a kid. Our family were in the audience, right? And like the theme song for the event was my band. Like they let a Junior song, but Brick by Brick was the theme song, right? So like there's so much there. We were just like, this is like, oh my, nothing's gonna top this. And also I'm pretty sure it was the first kind of like televised or I guess like aired on the network WWE show ever from Wales.
Yeah, I think
right.
It was.
Like they've only ever done house shows there, so this felt special. And when we won the belts, right, like the hard cam is shaking because I mean this is the thing that a lot of people in America and a lot of the big companies don't really understand is that they come to Britain and they think of England, and I think Scotland has a big kind of like identity in America. I mean Ireland has a big identity, and I think England does. I don't think Wales does. And I think quite often I remember going to one of those house shows when I was 12 years old, and Lillian Garcia saying, "We're so excited to be here in Cardiff, England," and the crowd booed the hell out of me. Like, boo! So that's just like from growing up, I was like, oh, they just don't care about Wales, and then suddenly this happens, and everyone in the audience, 5,000 people there, are seeing their own win. They're seeing Welsh people for the first time in history winning championships. We had, it was just incredible. Nothing could have beat that, I don't think. The only thing that would have been being at Clash at the Castle, which was, in Wales again, and the biggest gate they'd ever done in
Britain. So the Wembley gig, right?
Right, what was it, 65,000?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they fired all their Welsh talent 2 weeks before. So it's crazy. So going back to the point of like, and like whatever, you know, I'm not trying to dunk on WWE.
They're lost.
Yeah, like they're a big company. I'm sure they just didn't realize what they were doing. It was probably like, oh, lose all these guys, save some money. But I think that reinforces my point that sometimes Wales isn't seen as like, it doesn't have its own identity. Like if you just looked at footage from a few years earlier of us winning the belts and seeing the hard cam shake, I think you would have gone, we can't release all 4 of our Welsh talent 2 weeks before the big Welsh show. Probably should have put one of us on a dark match,
or something
just to get the pop. Yeah, you know, or even like anything, a crowd shot, whatever. But so I think that just reinforces that a lot of big American wrestling companies don't really look at Wales as its own country, and Welsh people are incredibly proud about it being its own country. And like, I'd say, me personally, and I know like Danny Jones, for example, and you, a bit of a chip on our shoulder, you know what I mean? Like,
of course.
we are a country, you know, a very good one as well. So yeah, how did you find the?
I remember like when we thought like, oh, there's a chance we could win these belts, and we were having a conversation beforehand, and I went to you like, you know, if we win these, we will be the first Welshman to ever hold gold in the WWE. And then he just goes, no. He just goes, Mason Ryan definitely held the tag belts. I went, oh no. I spent 3 hours last night looking online.
Yeah.
I was like, we will be the first. And Mark was like, no. Like he was convinced. He started naming these people. I was going, nope.
And then Adrian Street, I thought back in the day, maybe
Nope.
he did ref, but he didn't.
No. So it was like, when it was like, when it happened, it was like, I remember being so nervous before we went out through the door, the curtain, and we went through the curtain, and there's just a sea of Welsh flags, sea of people going absolutely crazy. And I remember just getting in the ring, and Marsh turned to me going like, this is going to be amazing. And there were just moments in the match. Yeah, I got goosebumps now. Moments in the match, just like when like stuff would happen, and it would be. The pop would be unreal. And I'd be like, oh my God, there's like 20 more million things to come.
It
like,
was the best.
It was
the best day ever. Like the best match of our careers. Like, but 100%. Like sometimes whatever you do in the ring, it just depends on the crowd. And we could have done anything that night, and the crowd would have been behind us. Like,
and it was just like, and obviously in there was like I think as well because it was triple threat, and the Grizzly and Veterans who our careers have kind of been entwined with a little bit since we've been a tag team. But then they put Gallus in there. I think it instantly just went, the Welsh boys are in there to beat a pin to transition the belts. Like that's what's going to happen because that's what happens with triple threats. So I think on top of it, it was just the perfect storm. And you talk about Adrian Street. So I'm from Bramau, the same town as Adrian Street, and that's what kind of spurred me on when I wanted to become a wrestler. Is knowing this guy went from a mining town to become this great legendary wrestler.
And he's the only sorry to cut him, but he's the only Welsh wrestler who's really like done anything.
Before our group,
our group. You know, I know you have Mason Ryan and stuff, but they came from the bodybuilding world. Adrian Street was like the Welsh legend, and no one had really done anything since him. You know?
To the point where like WWE made like a documentary about him to put on the network as a special, and we kind of like we dabbled. We hadn't really met him. There was that premiere where we saw him for a second, but we didn't really meet him properly. And then the week before Takeover Cardiff, like, bring in a special guest to do some training at the PC, and it was Adrian Street.
No.
So literally went, as Mark says about being like couldn't have been any better. Mark had his band like playing the gig. We had Adrian Street, who is the wrestler from my hometown, in the audience watching us win the belts, and then like literally came through so funny because he's passed away now unfortunately, but like because he was an elderly gentleman who doesn't really understand like TV. Like we came back and they're like, okay, we need an interview with Radzi, and we're about to start doing this interview, and he just moves everyone out the way and just gets his wife to take a photo on his camera, and we're just like, okay, Adrian.
It was great though, right? And he was buzzing. He was like, and then like the Welsh boys, you know what I mean?
And then he was like shaking, I was like, I hope we get to see that photo, but he was like shaking it everywhere. It was this is great.
He's
so
the man.
That's a true homecoming.
It was couldn't be any better.
Best day ever.
You know what it is, as they say, I always like to give my flowers. I want to give your flowers back because what you guys did there, it can never be replicated.
Yes, is that thank you. Yeah, because I mean,
LJ Cleary said to me, we had a conversation, and I said, but the worst, he was like, it doesn't matter what you do in wrestling after this, or what WWE change. He was like, you will always be the first Welshman to ever hold gold. It can't be. He went, you are in history forever. They could try to make somebody the most successful Welsh person ever after this. He went, but you will always be the first. They can't take that away.
Very validating for having long careers and then getting that kind of payoff. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Then a little bit after that, I believe was Impact Wrestling. And now forming Subculture with Danny, that's also here today as well. And you guys also won tag team titles there.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
So that was also very validating. So like for me personally, like I went to TNA before WWE for 2 years. Back in I won British Boot Camp 2 in 2014. And my goal then was like, I need to win the X Division belt. I really need to win the X Division belt. And the 2 years I was there, I never had gold. I never won anything. And I felt like in some ways, although I had a wonderful time there and it was a great experience, it stunted my career in some ways. So the fact that I was able to then, we went to WWE for 6 years or so, and then go back to TNA, go back to Impact Wrestling, and win gold. I was like, oh, that's something I never thought I'd be able to do, and we got to do it as a team, that was incredible. Although we're not the first Welsh champions in TNA history.
First Welshman to hold tag team gold.
Yeah, we go. We can BS that a little bit, but I think as well it was really validating for us because, you hear a lot of stories about like working for WWE, and at least in our scenario when we were in NXT UK, our matches were quite micromanaged because you'd have people over in Orlando that would somehow have to kind of half produce your stuff in London. It was during COVID. We didn't get loads of creative expression. And then when we debuted at Impact Under Siege against Chris Bay and Ace Austin, and suddenly we had all this creative freedom. And they're the best, and they're awesome. They were perfect opponents. And we went in there, and I remember we had a banger, and we were really proud of it, and they were fantastic. And when we came backstage, it was like the agents, the writers, like all the higher ups in the company, they were all like looking at us like, that was incredible. And we were not used to getting that reaction at NXT UK, Although pre-COVID, it definitely felt we were impressing. I think maybe we were kind of old news after COVID a bit. And it wasn't negative, but it wasn't like, you guys are incredible. And then there it was like, oh wow, like we had writers coming up to us like, that was incredible. I mean, Tommy Dreamer came up to me and said, when you worked here last time, you were like a little boy doing high spots, and now you're a real worker. And I was like, oh wow, like, you've seen my progress over the last few years. It felt, it was very, very nice. And and the fact that then they decided to put the tag team championships on us when we didn't even have US visas. So like we literally only worked in Canada. We said to them, we were like, we can work in Canada because we were allowed to legally. And then I remember getting the call from Hardy Evans, and I was just like, I would joke to him and Danny. I'd be like, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a great show?" Oh, it's that.
I was gonna say, I was like, you're missing the part. Yeah, I was gonna say.
So we had this match, and then like the next day, like the card got changed because someone got injured, and then they were like, "You guys are going to Motor City Machine Guns," and we were like, "Oh my."
Because he was like, "Oh, imagine we have a great match on Under Siege, and they just go, just pump against the Machine Guns."
Yeah.
And I was going, "Yeah, sure, that's gonna happen."
And then it happened, and we were like, "Whoa, like bucket list, incredible!" Yeah. We were buzzing. They're like our heroes in wrestling. And then I was like, "Oh, imagine they like fly us back out and put the belts on us." And then you're like, "Cool." And they're like, "So we're gonna fly you back out, and we're gonna put the belts on you, but you can only work Canada because you haven't got US visas." So on top of that, they were like, "Go defend them around the UK." So it was just after years of feeling a little bit frustrated in WWE at the end, suddenly we were like, "Oh my god, our dreams are coming true here." Yeah. So it was a very, very wonderful experience.
He obviously has that conversation with Hardy Evans, and I can swear, right? I can swear. So he was like, he has a conversation with Hardy Evans, which I don't know what's happened. He then texted me, "Can we chat?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he rings me. He goes, "Right, they just rang me." And before he says anything, I go, "Fuck off!" But he's like buzzing. He goes like, "They just rang me," and I just know what he's gonna say. I'm like, "Fuck off!" They just say. He's like, "Yeah."
It was Zack Sabre Jr.
It was Zack Sabre Jr. I was like, "No." I was like, "This is wild."
Do you know, people might be watching this thinking like, "These are marks. Like, why are they
love
this?" But first of all, I am a mark, so I don't care.
Same here. We all are.
You know, right? Like, I never want to stop being a fan. But second of all, like, it's really exciting just to feel appreciated, as you know what I mean. Like especially after the match, for someone to be like, "Hey, we think you're really good, and we think you're good enough that we're going to put the tag straps on you and fly you back and forth and do it." Like that was again after the time we'd had at the end of NXT UK. That was so nice to be like, "Oh, we're not crap."
We appreciate this again.
Yeah, like your confidence gets knocked in wrestling quite a lot, and like I think it was really, again, I keep using the word validating, but it was really nice to be like, "Oh, we're not shit. We are good," and like this other big company is valuing us, and yeah, it was great.
I think it's like we talked about WWE and we had a great time, but it is like it's such a juggernaut, and there's so many things going on that sometimes like the wrestling can sometimes become the least important part of what's going on. So I said to somebody before, I was like, I left WWE the best version of myself I'd ever been. I was like, I'd been in the best shape. I understood my nutrition. I understood the gymming. I felt like my wrestling was the tightest I'd ever been. But I was the least confident I'd ever been. So this is why when we went to TNA, and it was like, we just did what we were doing anyway. It was that injection of confidence again of going like, we are as good as we hopefully thought we were. But you say about COVID, like we won that run in 2019, and we had we won the belts. We lost the belts, and I remember we were losing the belts, and we weren't sad about losing the belts, but we lost them, and the crowd that night were particularly hard, and we were a bit like, oh, we felt a bit beat up. And Shawn Michaels saw us and took us one side and was like, no, boys, just want to let you know, like, we haven't taken us off you because we think you're bad. We really value you. And he was like, oh, we didn't. Okay, that's great. And then we got called up to Monday Night Raw for a night.
Yeah.
And then we literally went wrestling the Viking Raiders.
Yeah.
And then we did well there. And then we went and did Dusty Classic and had the match that people think maybe the best match of that tournament or whatever.
Yeah, like.
And then we did York, and we were super over in York, and we're like, oh, we're rocking and rolling. We're gonna go out and do WrestleMania, the WrestleMania weekend. It was like, oh my god, this is sick. And then COVID hit, and I think the one thing that always was for us is like, we're not cookie cutter WWE wrestlers, right? We're 5'8", like 170 pounds, 175 pounds. But the one thing I think we always had is we were good enough with wrestling that we could get the crowd on side. And people say this all the time, if it's real, you'll feel it. And I think with us, the crowd always got that. And then when we were in COVID and there was no crowd, it took away our one thing we could have used.
The energy.
We didn't have that. So then it was like, unless we were doing things their way, we weren't ticking the box. And if we weren't ticking the box, we weren't moving up. And that became very difficult.
So you think that's maybe somewhat of the thing, like, okay, they probably judge on that?
Yeah, I think so. I just think
that's not. Wow.
I think we were good for our time on the indies of getting a reaction. You know what I mean? And as you said, like, especially Triple H and Shawn Michaels backstage, like even then, you can't argue with crowd reaction. That's what they want, right? You know? And then when there's no crowd,
how can you be judged like that?
Exactly, and like that's our strong suit. So then suddenly, like, maybe all of our flaws are then being shown, at least in the world of WWE and WWE. When there's no crowd there, then, you know, our perks aren't being shown, but they're like, oh, well, they could be doing this better and that better. They could be bigger. They could be whatever. And we're like, okay, but give us a crowd, and we'll be able to redeem ourselves here.
Because I like, obviously both of us will think we think it should be this way, and then if I watch a younger wrestler do something and the crowd go nuts for it, I will sit there and go, okay, well, times are changing, or, you know, maybe I'm wrong about this, or how have they done that? Whereas if they believe, Sean and Trips believe it should be this way, and we're going out there and the crowd are going nuts, they will be going, well, the crowd are reacting, so whatever they're doing also works. Whereas when there's no crowd, and then they believe something should be a certain way, that it could very well be that they go, well, they're not doing it the way we think it should be done. Yeah. So it's hard for us to kind of argue back. You'll be like, yeah, but you know, the crowd. It was
the crowd pops.
Yeah. So I think that explains that kind of confidence knock post WWE, which I think every wrestler has, and then how TNA really gave us the confidence back, I think.
So recapping this, like, that sucks.
Yeah.
In other ways, like, because no crowd, because you guys, when you come out, like, you're always like energied, and you come out with your own, like, wow. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, no crowd.
I'm thinking like that's.
We're nothing without the fans.
Exactly. Now, RevPro undisputed British tag team title. You guys add more gold to yourself as well. Let's talk about RevPro right there.
So that was a great run that we had at the same time as Impact, right?
Conquer everything, that's
everything, you know.
Summer subculture.
You know, RevPro is seen as the biggest indie in the UK and Europe.
Yeah.
You know, WXW. And it was great. It was a good little run. We got to wrestle the Greedy Souls a ton, which is what made it an even more tempting thing to do is that, you know, now here's the thing as well. Like, I know when everyone becomes friends in wrestling, and you have loads of friends you meet throughout wrestling. Brendan and you have known each other since how old you were 10 something?
Yeah, 11 years
high school.
Old.
That's what he mentioned on his interview.
11 years old.
Those two and Wild Boar used to backyard wrestle. Like, they used to backyard wrestle for years as teenagers. I used to watch their videos before I met them. And then Danny Jones lived down the road to you.
And his mum used to drive to, like, go to shopping, and she would go past where we would be like 50, like not 50, like 30 kids all backyarding on this homemade base by the side of the road. So Danny Jones would be driving past his little child going, what is this madness?
Yeah.
and then years later he'd come to training and we say to the backyard, you go, there's some backyarders over in Brumau, and we'd be like, oh, that was us, and he'd be like, no.
Yeah, like, so that's how close knit this group is. Like, if anything, I'm on the outskirts more from being, I was Cardiff, right? So, but then I met you.
Old city slicker.
Yeah, the big city managers. But like, we met when I was 13, right, in training. So, like, when we talk about being friends, like, it's not like, oh, we're wrestling friends, we're really tight. It's like, we'd all get drunk every Boxing Day, you know, a day after Christmas in the valleys, and go, like this isn't like,
at everyone's wedding.
Everyone we're at weddings. This is like. So when we got to work a lot with Greedy Souls and for a meaningful championship, you know, like the tag championship at RevPro, it was like, oh, we'll bite your hand off. We get to have a meaningful friend with actually a meaningful match with our like very, very, very close friends. Your best friend in Brendan. That was an easy.
And they're great too. So like I feel like after that run, they were a better team and we were a better team.
Yeah.
Because it was just we just bounced off each other and just learned from each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
They spoke highly about you as well because they mentioned high school, they mentioned growing up. So I'm like, okay, now this sums up. There you go.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, New Wave New Wave Cardiff. You're one of the head trainers.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, how's that like teaching now the younger generations coming up?
With New Wave in general, it's really nice, right? So essentially, the biggest school in Wales for the longest time was Dragon Pro, and that was ran by Wild Boar. Wild Boar then sold it to Brendan White, who just interviewed it, and he changed the name to New Wave Wrestling, which was the name of their backyard wrestling company. So NW, the old videos I used to watch as a kid, like, who are these nuts guys? That was New Wave Wrestling. So it was a nice full circle moment. From there, then he ran his school. You opened up a school in West Midlands.
Yeah. I'm New Wave West Midlands. Yeah.
New Wave West Midlands. I then came after with New Wave Wrestling Cardiff, and now we have New Wave Wrestling Toronto. So really now it's based in 3 countries. Incredible the whole little system that we got going on. What's really nice for me is, I coached at Dragon Pro for a long time, and I've regularly done seminars, around the world throughout my entire career. It's really nice and rewarding for me to now have like a group of my own trainees that feel like they're kind of mine, and I have. So I'm a head coach along with Matt Gatlin and Splits McPins and my other coaches there. And to be honest with me, and I'm sure Flash will tell you the same thing about his school as well, is that as we get older in wrestling, and we were making good money when we were in WWE, and then you go back to the indies, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, to navigate through a wrestling career as you're getting older. As I said, I have a kid, and so it's actually having that, to be able to still be a wrestler, but to have a little bit more of a solid career choice as a coach and as a promoter, it's just made my life, but also my career, much more enjoyable. There was a time where there was a lot of pressure for me to wrestle more. You need to bring in the money, because like I was relying on it. And now I'm a bit like, actually I live a very, very nice life now that I get to be a coach. For like 3-4 days a week. I get to run my own shows, and then I get to wrestle on top of that. And I feel very grateful. Wrestling's the only job I've ever had, so I'm very grateful that I still get to do it in whatever capacity it is, whether it's coach, promoter, or wrestler. And the fact that I now have a group of guys who I can see going from day 1 to like match 1 to like match 10, and I'm like, these guys are going to be great. Like I get to bring them into wrestling, and they can learn from all my mistakes as well. So
There's a lot of them.
and there are tons. Yeah. So I'm very, very grateful to be in the position I am and be able to run my own school. I'm sure you are as well.
As you said yourself, you run yours as well. I ask you this question now: if there could be, I don't know if you guys already do this already. Like, say your school versus his school type of thing. Have you guys thought of that yet?
We haven't done it with ours. You've done it with Brendan's, right?
Yeah, with Newport.
Waves collide.
Waves collide.
Waves collide. Well, that sounds good.
So I think the next Waves collide should be the 3 of Cardiff, Newport, and West Midlands. Yellow versus purple versus
And why
blue.
not add Canada as the outsiders?
Bring it over forward. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Now, how about yourself? As like when you train the up and coming like the youngsters and stuff, is it like fulfillment for you?
Yeah, so like, and like Mark said, like you've been very fortunate to have only wrestling as the job. But like for me, I had a few little jobs, and I fully qualified as a teacher, and I almost went into like doing full-time teaching, and then got offered PWG. And after PWG, it's been like, that was 2018. It's been my full-time gig since 2018, which is absolutely unreal. But for me, I never wanted to open the school. I kind of like, as soon as I finished with WWE, there's a local school near me, and I just want to take one or two sessions. I was like, I'll take 1 or 2 sessions. It'll be a week. That'll be enough for me, and I'll just try to balance everything else. And then there's these 2 lads from my school called Act 2, great tag team. We wrestled them for the Impact Wrestling tag team belts when we did the tour of the UK. But I was going to the school, and I was just coaching, and I would just hear them, like, not complain, but they would be like, I could see that the person who owned the school should be doing more and you should be getting more, and they would just badger me going, you need to open a school. And I was like, I don't want to open a school. And he's like, I don't want to open a school. And I kept fighting, I don't want to do it. And they'd be, and eventually the owner of that school just decided he'd had enough, and he was shutting up shop. So as soon as that happened, I was like, I think I need to buy this school. And then I literally rang Brendan, and Brendan was like, yeah, so it needs to be New Wave, doesn't it? And I was like, yeah, I think it does need to be New Wave West Midlands. So again, same with him, it's C, and those boys, Act 2 said, now they're arguably one of the busiest and most successful teams in the UK.
Yeah,
they hold like 4 lots of tag team championships at the moment, or whatever. And they're smashing it, and seeing other people then that are having their debuts, and and just going from being day one to got a lad who was day one with me, Leo Silva, and he just wrestled Mark Haskins in a match and seen me do absolutely wild stuff. And I'm just like, I've got a very good, again, with yourself, got a very good team with, now Jack Knudsen is like my foundation coach, and then Mark Haskins has also come on board, because Mark was always like brilliant for us when we were coming up and helping us, wasn't he? And one thing is like, it's just this ethos. Everyone has the same ethos. It's like, we all want wrestling to be good. We all know that you have to work hard, but you also need to be supportive. So many people like scream and shout at people and like, wrestling's hard. Yeah. Like, be supportive with them. Tell them that the harder you work, the more successful you will be. But you also need to nurture people's like ability and their confidence, and make sure that it's a nurturing, understanding place that rewards hard work in any capacity. It doesn't reward success, it rewards hard work. Yeah. So that's the thing. People think, oh, I fail, and I say to everyone in my schools, hey, you're gonna come in here today, and I want you all to be ready to fail. And they just look at me in horror. And I'm like, because you need to fail a million times before you nail it, and it'll mean so much more to you. And if we're not failing, we're not trying. And that's what I always say to them. So yeah, I really kind of try to push that.
Kind of said it better. Now, as we're winding down here, I got to ask you a question as well now, is this. What has wrestling taught you?
Oh, wow. I feel like wrestling's taught me most of what I know, to be honest. And again, like, you know, I'm 33 years old. And I started wrestling at 13, so I've been wrestling for like quite a lot longer than I haven't, you know. I think the biggest thing and most important thing, which I really hope I kind of pass this on to my daughter as well, it's told me to be tenacious in terms of actually pursuing what you want. Now, essentially, follow your dreams. You know, in simplest terms, to follow your dreams. But I mean that even in small ways. Like it's easy in society to fall into, you know, you're told go to school, go to college, get a job, have family, do this. To be cookie cutter. Yeah. And I think whatever it is, whether it be pro wrestling for me or being in a band for me, but you know, whatever anyone wants to do, like it's good to really think about it and it's good to really pursue it, you know. I think you just have to have, I guess self-belief is the word I'm looking for here, you know, it's to actually believe in an idea, and also to like allow yourself to fail, like you just said, but to like be cringy as well. You know what I mean?
Well.
Like there's like I keep seeing this.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
My Instagram algorithm is constantly full of like, you need to be cringy before you're good. You know what I mean? Like you see all these motivating things of like, you're bad, then you're cringy, then you're good, and that's it. And you know, everyone fights that when they're first starting something. Like I definitely did, you know. But luckily, I loved wrestling enough that I was just like, well, I'll be cringy. Let's do it. You know. And I think like I want my daughter to know that. It's way better to be, you know, heart on your sleeve, unapologetic about something, and just go, this is me, this is what I'm trying to do, ask questions, be open to failing, you know, perseverance, I guess, you know, and tenacity to at least try and go in the direction that you want to go in whatever area of life. Wrestling's taught me to do that for things outside of wrestling. Do you know what I mean? It's given me confidence, even as a father, you know what I mean? As a husband and a parent, like I can have more confidence in my parenting decisions because it worked with wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Like wrestling worked out, so like I should have the confidence in myself as long as I think things through, obviously, you know. So I just, for me, like a bit of a weird answer, but tenacity and perseverance, I guess.
Wow,
you know?
said better. Enough for yourself.
I think for me, it's just confidence. I think growing up, I don't think I was supernaturally confident as kind of smaller kids, and I think wrestling gave me confidence, and the further I got in wrestling, the more confident I got outside of wrestling. And I think it's like, I always just think about on my wedding day, saying I was going to do my speech, and my wife just being like, well, you got to practice it. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. And she was just like, no, I was like, you've got it all written down. I was like, no, I've got bullet points. And she was just like adamant, like, oh my God. And then like, I remember doing the speech, and I sat down and she just looked at me and went, that was great. And I was like, yeah,
I'll confirm. One of the best wedding speeches I've ever seen. Very, very good speech.
But I think it's confidence, and it's having that, like when I walk into a CrossFit gym, you're full of all these people, and sometimes you have conversations with people, and there's people there that they've served the military and they've been in war-torn countries, and to me it's like, I can't even imagine how you get through that. Or there's people there that are high-paid lawyers who are making like 5 times the money I make. But then like people, when I walk into the gym, they always say like, "Oh, Gav lights the room up" and stuff like that. But it's all about just trying to be confident. And I look at some of the students at my school who are better. They are better wrestlers at this stage than I was at that stage. But the one thing they don't have is the confidence. I'm like, you need to have more confidence. I say this, I'm like, I think Wild Boar, Mike Hitchman, who's right now, I think he is one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. I think he's unreal. I think he's a way better wrestler than I am. But if you had to say what was the one thing that I had that he didn't, I think it's absolute confidence in myself and belief in what I was doing was correct, and just the whole like not faking it to make it. But then also the other thing I'd say is having a good network of friends around you, like yourself, Pete Dunne, Eddie Dennis, Souls, and we are very much like. We call each other out. So if people like get too much or they get arrogant, they're like, you need, again, we've had that.
It's a good thing.
Like, he's like, hey, you're annoying people. Like, you need to chill it down. And you need to be, and you'll be sad about that. But then you reflect on it, you understand it, and it keeps you humble. Because everyone, like, confidence is great, but confidence unchecked is bad.
Yeah.
So again, you've got to have that balance. So for me, I think it's having confidence and being able to kind of project that confidence in a very unthreatening way. That has allowed me to navigate life inside and outside wrestling.
Exactly, I could have said better. Now, I was going to say this now as well, guys. Fans love to hear this. Dream match. You guys want to go as a tag team or you want to go separate? It's up to you guys. A dream match for you guys, somebody from the past or the present. But it can only be a singles or a tag team match. Let's go, okay, how about this? Let's go singles and tag team. Let's go for each. So, somebody from the past and present.
So, tag team.
The fans, by the way, they love ripping on it.
Okay.
You know how it is.
Tag team, we got our, like, I guess number one dream match with Moxie Machine Guns.
We had that.
We had that.
But I think Hardy Boys is the one, right?
Oh, it is the one.
We were at TNA tapings earlier this year, actually, out in LA, and we were manifesting it again. We were like, hopefully it happens. We weren't even on the show. So, like, we
were backstage and there was chats. And then at one point there was a bit like, oh yeah, you know Hardy's be good. And we were like,
well, go on, yeah, manifesting it.
Time up.
So hopefully one day that happens. That's the tag dream match. And the singles, for me, can I say two names?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's two names that have been on my kind of wrestling bucket list forever, and I don't think one of them will happen, which is Sami Zayn.
Oh, what a good one.
Oh, that'd be great.
I love that because I studied so much of his stuff when I was younger. You know,
He was like Al Generico.
Al Generico. Although, who knows if that's a different person altogether.
No one knows.
But I used to study that stuff like tons. And then the other is Cesaro, Castagnoli, because I never won. And hopefully that will get to happen at some point. Those two are my like bucket list ones.
I think you said the Hardy, I think that's definitely up there, but I think like I've wrestled them in a tag match, but it wasn't Mark. It was Mark. So for me, I would love to do the Young Bucks. I think we'd have a great one with the Young Bucks.
Because I worked Nick as well years ago, but never.
And me and Mark Haskins had a match at Peter G with them too. But I think this would be absolutely great. And then singles. Are we anybody? So even if they're not living, is that
past
fine?
or present?
Oh, Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero,
it'd just be Guerrero. It's one of those I never ever got to meet Guerrero. I always say I think we're going to talk about this maybe about Rushmore, but there was I'll try to stay off it. But there's people who are on my Rushmore, which we'll talk about in a second, who I was fortunate enough to meet. Guerrero, I never met. So for me, it was like, if you could have that, I get those two moments. Then I get to wrestle him, I get to meet him as well. So I think that'd be it for me.
Exactly. That's exactly what's next. It's like, you watched. Now let's say Mount Rushmore. You want to go singles, or we could go tag teams.
They will be. Tag team.
Let's do tag
teams.
Let's do tag teams, but then we can go singles. I know you're itching to do the singles there.
Okay. Tag teams, Hardy Boys, Young Bucks, for completely different reasons.
Yes.
They're kind of the same team, but in different generations.
And I feel like the business that Young Bucks has done outside of the ring is monumental in terms of like AEW and how they made the indies so profitable. You know what I mean? Like how they succeeded so much and changed the game. So Hardy's, Young Bucks, Mighty Machine Guns, and who gets the last one?
It's 4, isn't it? It's hard then.
Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I do. I agree with them. I think for them, you've got to throw like a curveball in there, but then you've got in my head, it's got to be a different style. And I think like people probably say
it's very very cruiserweight.
People would probably go like, you could go like FTR, but for me, you don't get FTR without having the Brainbusters.
Yes.
Brainbusters.
And that's why I'm like, oh, maybe it's Brainbusters, because then you look at, like, watch the Rockers, and I'm like, oh, the Rockers and Brainbusters were so good, and we are very similar to the Rockers, so maybe it's Brainbusters, but I also think, how wild would the Legion of Doom be?
No, I was saying, right?
Or the Steiners.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Steiners would kill us. I don't want that. I don't want that.
Let's confirm those first three, and yeah.
I think stylistically, because I think a lot of the teams get flashy, even with Legion of Doom and stuff like that. I think the Brainbusters don't get the credit they deserve.
Smack him in there. Smack him in there as our final one.
Yeah, Brainbusters.
It was crazy. You guys mentioned the Hardys. Matt Hardy chose the Brainbusters, LOD himself. He called him and Jeff
Nice.
the GOATs. Then he picked 3D, Team 3D.
Okay,
Yeah.
No, but he picked himself as the GOAT. He said, "I'm like." No,
Yeah.
you got to see. He's like, it's so confident.
Well, confidence is
He could,
key.
Yeah, but it's when
Confidence
he
is
earned
key,
it. He
yeah.
earned it. He's like, "I'm a GOAT. Me and my brother are GOATs." I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay, yes."
100%. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Love it. Now let's go with you, singles.
Oh, singles for me, for my favorite wrestlers. Then I would be Guerrero's on there.
Yep.
Sean's on there, and then my other two are Mick Foley.
Wow.
And Roddy Piper.
Okay,
Is
that's
he Stone Cold?
No, no, not for me. No, I believe that Stone Cold is the greatest of all time.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not on my Mount Rushmore. Like I will argue that. Like people say, oh, for me it's Guerrero, it's Sean, it's Foley, and then it's Piper. And I got to meet all of them apart from Guerrero. Got to meet Foley at an Access, and
Character.
it was him and Howard Finkel, and they was going to get some photos done, and they had to change the film, and Howard Finkel was just kind of like rolling his eyes and very bored, and Piper was just like, hey, so where you from? We're having a chat. So I was a wrestler, and I just said to him, like, I want to make this to reality. He looked at me and went, don't take no for an answer. He was just like, he went, you're not the biggest, I wasn't the biggest. He was like, but they're going to try to stop you, and just don't take no for an answer.
What a legend. That's awesome.
It's too good.
Sick.
Your singles?
My singles, Kurt Angle, #1. Such an underrated.
He argues he's the GOAT.
I think Kurt Angle is the greatest of all time, and I'll argue that with anyone.
Bret Hart believes.
Yeah, really? Is that?
That's one match that he regret he never had.
Oh, wow.
Him and Mysterio. But no, he says Mysterio is one of the greatest of all time, but Kurt Angle's up there.
Rey Mysterio is my next.
Yeah.
So I would say.
All right, Brett.
I would say, yeah. Brett's not in it, unfortunately, but I'm sure it'd be a close.
I do love Brett.
So it is Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Mick Foley.
Oh, Mick Foley, okay.
Yeah.
Love Foley.
For all the work, it's just like.
Yeah, and all the stuff he's done. No one really appreciates, I think, like the stuff that he's done. The memorable moments.
Yeah.
You take it in.
And then I do think Stone Cold is the final
Yeah,
one.
Stone Cold.
I think that's my top. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
These are hitter bang-ons, as they say.
Or I'll swap Stone Cold for Justin Liger.
Oh, that's a great one.
Oh, that's a good
Because
one.
I feel like we're being very North American.
Based on- yes.
Whereas Liger, I think, is
You have a
just.
chance to switch. You have a chance right now
I'm
to
not
switch.
switching. I do love Hayabusa. He is in my.
If you could add now one odd one to your list, like I'd say Mount Rushmore. You know, what actually funny is Bret Hart added 5, which is it's.
Oh, then well, that's the case then, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, like I used to do the 450 because Hayabusa I just thought was. I remember seeing Hayabusa and be like, what is this stuff he's doing? Absolutely wild.
Who'd you add as a odd?
As a fifth.
Alternative, yeah. Alternate.
Oh, well, I'd add Stone Cold then.
Stone Cold,
I'd add Liger and Austin. Yeah.
I love it. Now I gotta thank you guys as much for doing this. This has been incredible, guys,
Loved it.
as well.
Loved it.
Now, as a last question is this: when it's all said and done, what do you want the fans to remember you guys as a tag team or even as individuals? Let's start off with you, Flash.
There was something that was said to me recently. I'm gonna try not to get upset about this because I thought it was quite lovely when he said it. One of my students said recently, he was like, he thinks I put so much effort into the school. He's like, I think you've left the business in a better place than you found it. And he said that, and it really got to me because I can remember just like Regal and Brookside kind of saying the same thing, saying like Brookside going, Bobby Brookside, if people don't know, he's one of the coaches at the PC or whatever, great British wrestler. He said, this business owes you nothing. He was like, it will take. You just need to enjoy what you can from it. And he went, try to find the business in a better place than he found it. That's what he said. And I remember, and I've never said that to Jack Knudsen, but Jack Knudsen recently, we did a big show and crowned him the first champion, and I felt like we did it with 30 wrestlers who most of them came from my school. And I was just like, oh, so pleased, that's what we seem to be building at New Wave West Midlands. And he just said, mate, he said, you should be buzzing. He went, you left this job in a better place than you found it. And that proper got to me. So I think that's why I would love people to remember me for.
I think, to kind of piggyback off of that, like specifically for me to leave like the Welsh wrestling scene in a better place. Again, because when we started, it was just so There was, there
was nothing.
There was nothing, and there was no Welsh wrestler. You could look at William Regal. If you were an English kid, you could look at William Regal and go, well, he did it. If you were an Irish kid, you could look at Finlay and go, oh, okay, well, he did it. In Scotland, there's been tons over the years. Do you know what I mean? Drew McIntyre, but like loads now. There was not a Welsh one, and there still isn't now. And I just think at least now, like a lot of the people who come to my school, they're like, I watched you at TNA British Boot Camp, or I watched you in WWE. I was there for the takeover Cardiff, and to be an example that you can be from Wales, this, what I talk about, like somewhat forgotten country from the eyes of Americans.
Population of 3 million.
Population of 3 million, and to see that, oh, they did it. That's what I'd like to be remembered for. And also, I've got some pretty cool moves that I invented, so I would also like to be remembered for those too. Amazing Red is the absolute goat of, I always say, if you could copyright wrestling moves, he'd be a millionaire. I had a few in there as well, so maybe people will remember some of my cool, innovative moves.
Which are what, Mark?
Is that?
Which are what?
I don't know, like the Stomp 182, which everyone does now. Io Sky does it. Like, I like to take credit for that a little bit. Some other cool little bassy bits. Nothing too particular,
I love it. I guys want to thank you so much, and I want to give your flowers to yourself. Say thank you for so much stuff that you've done. Like obviously watching NXT UK and the stuff you've done, the memories that you gave us all. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much, dude.
Flash, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
And until next time, guys, here you go. Stay tuned. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.